I was 19 when my parents told me to leave. Not because I failed, not because I did something wrong, but because my sister needed a better future. So they chose hers and sacrificed mine. 5 years later, she walked into my office for a job interview and didn't recognize me at first. My name is Lily Anderson, and growing up, I always knew something felt different. Not unfair in an obvious way, just unbalanced. My sister Emily was the priority. Better school, better attention, better opportunities. And me? I was the independent one, the one who could handle things. At least, that's what they told themselves. The night everything changed, started quietly. Dinner table, normal conversation. Until my dad brought it up. Emily got accepted, he said proudly. Top university. Expensive. Far away. My mom smiled like it was the best news in the world. And it was, for her. Then my dad looked at me. Different tone now. We need to talk about space, he said. Space? That word didn't sound right. What do you mean? I asked. He cleared his throat. With Emily leaving soon, we'll need to focus our resources, he said. Resources. Another strange word. My mom finally spoke. Soft voice. Careful. We think it's time for you to be more independent. There it was. The moment. Clear. Cold. You want me to move out, I said. They didn't deny it. Didn't even hesitate. It's what's best, my dad replied. Best. For who? Because it definitely wasn't for me. I'm 19, I said. You'll figure it out, my mom added quickly. Like it was encouragement, like it wasn't a decision that would change everything. Emily stayed quiet, didn't look at me, didn't say anything, because silence is easier than choosing a side. That night, I packed my things, not everything, just what I could carry. Because when people decide your place is temporary, you don't argue. You adjust. I stood at the door for a second, hoping someone would say something. Stop me. Change their mind. But no one did. So I left. The next few months were hard. Small room, part-time jobs, long nights. No safety net, no backup plan, just survival. But something interesting happened. I stopped waiting, stopped expecting, stopped depending. And slowly, I started building. Not big, not fast, but steady. Job after job, skill after skill, until I found something I was good at. Recruitment, understanding people, reading between the lines, seeing potential others missed. And for the
So,
first
what would you
time,
do if
someone
this
noticed
happened to
me,
you?
promoted
Would you
me, trusted me, and I didn't waste it. 5 years passed. Not easy, not perfect, but mine. I worked my way up, position by position, until one day, I had my own office, my own team, my own decisions. And one of those decisions was hiring. That morning, I had a full list of candidates, back-to-back interviews. Nothing unusual, until I saw a name. Emily Anderson. I paused. Read it again. Same name. Same age range. Same background. It had to be her. For a second, time felt strange. Like everything had just circled back. But I didn't react. Didn't cancel. Didn't avoid it. Because I wasn't that person anymore. I was different now. Stronger. Clearer. When she walked in, she looked nervous. Professional. Careful. And for a moment, she didn't recognize me. Not immediately. Because time changes people. But recognition came slowly. Her eyes paused, focused, then widened. Lily? She said softly. I nodded. Hi, Emily. Silence filled the room. Because this wasn't just an interview anymore. It was history. Sitting across from itself. I didn't know you worked here, she said. I do, I replied. Calm, professional, controlled. Because that's what this was now. Not a reunion. An interview. She sat down, still slightly shaken, trying to adjust, trying to act normal. But it wasn't normal. Not for her. Not for me. Should we continue? I asked. She nodded. Yes. And just like that, we started. Questions, answers, experience, everything standard, everything structured. But underneath it, there was something else. Unspoken, heavy, real. Halfway through, she hesitated, then said quietly, I didn't expect this. I looked at her. I'm sure you didn't, I replied. Because life doesn't always announce its turns. Sometimes, it just brings them back around. When you least expect it. The interview ended like any other. No drama, no confrontation. Just silence. Because the real question wasn't asked out loud, but it was there. In the air. Clear. Unavoidable. Would I hire her? After everything, I closed the file, looked at her one last time, and realized something important. This wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. Because I had already won. Not against her, but for myself. Ending line. They chose her future over mine. But 5 years later, I was the one deciding hers. When she walked into that room, everything felt still. Not awkward, not dramatic, just heavy. Because 5 years doesn't erase anything. It just changes how you carry it. Emily sat across from me, back straight, hands folded, trying to look composed. But I could see it. That small tension in her shoulders, that hesitation in her breathing, because this wasn't just another interview for her. And she knew it. I didn't acknowledge the past. Not yet. Because this wasn't about emotions. This was about control. And I had it. Let's continue, I said. Professional. Neutral. Like nothing had happened. She nodded. Relieved, maybe. Or maybe just unsure how to act. Tell me about your recent experience, I asked. Standard question. Safe. Predictable. She started talking, confident at first, explaining her degree, her internships, her skills, on paper. It looked decent, not extraordinary, but solid. Enough to get an interview, but not enough to guarantee anything. And I noticed something else. She kept choosing her words carefully, not like someone unsure, but like someone trying not to say the wrong thing, trying to impress, trying to win approval. And that felt familiar, because once upon a time, I was the one doing that. Halfway through, she paused, looked at me again, longer this time, like she was finally seeing it clearly. Not just me, but the situation. You're really the hiring manager? She asked quietly. Yes, I replied. Simple. No explanation. No story. Just truth. She nodded slowly. Processing. Because now, everything had shifted. Power. Position. Perspective. All reversed. I didn't know, she said. I didn't respond. Because that sentence, it doesn't change anything. Not really, we continued. More questions. More answers. But now, there was something different in her tone. Less confident. More careful. Because she wasn't just answering for the job anymore. She was aware of the history and how it might affect the outcome. Then I asked something simple. Why do you want this position? She hesitated. Just for a second, but it was enough. Because that question, it reveals more than skills. It reveals intention. I want stability, she said. Honest, not polished, not rehearsed, just real. And that caught me off guard, because I expected something else, something safer, something generic, but not that. Can you explain? I asked. She nodded, took a breath. My last job didn't work out, she admitted, and I need something consistent. Need. That word stood out, because now she wasn't presenting strength. She was admitting vulnerability, and that changes how you see someone. The interview ended shortly after. No sudden twists. No confrontation. Just a quiet finish. "Thank you for your time," I said. Professional, neutral. Like every other candidate, she stood up, picked up her bag, but didn't leave immediately because there was something else, unsaid, waiting. "I know this is complicated," she said softly. I looked at her because that was the first real acknowledgement, not of the job, of the past. "It doesn't have to be," I replied, and I meant that. Because I wasn't here to recreate old situations. I was here to make a decision, a fair one. She nodded slowly, but before she turned, she said something I didn't expect. "I didn't say anything back then," she admitted. Silence. Because now, we weren't talking about the interview anymore. We were talking about the night everything changed. "I know," I said. Not angry, not accusing, just aware. She looked down slightly. "I should have," she added. That landed because accountability, even late, still matters. She left after that, quietly. No drama, no scene, just a door closing behind her. I sat there for a moment, file still open, her name staring back at me. Because now, the real decision started. Not during the interview, after it. Do I treat her like any other candidate? Or do I let the past influence the outcome? Because both options feel justified. In different ways, I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes for a second, and thought about something simple. Not her, not my parents, not the past. Me, the version of me that left that house at 19, with nothing, no support, no backup, just myself. What would she expect me to do now? Hold on to resentment? Or move forward? Because here's the truth. Power doesn't just come from position. It comes from choice. And right now, I had one. A real one. I opened my eyes, looked at the file again, and made a decision. Not emotional, not reactive. Just clear. Because this wasn't about proving anything. It was about who I had become. I didn't make the decision right away. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted it to be right, not influenced by anger, not softened by guilt, just fair. I closed Emily's file, set it aside, and continued with the rest of the interviews. Candidate after candidate. Different stories, different skills, some stronger, some weaker, and slowly, a pattern became clear. Emily wasn't the best, but she wasn't the worst either. She was average, capable, trainable, but not exceptional. And in most situations, that wouldn't be enough. By the end of the day, I had 3 candidates worth considering. Emily was one of them. The other 2. Stronger on paper, more experience, better results, cleaner records. If this was purely about performance, the decision would have been easy. But real decisions aren't always that simple, because potential matters too. Consistency matters, attitude matters, and sometimes growth matters more than perfection. I sat alone in my office that evening, 3 files in front of me, 3 different futures, and one decision. But only one of those files carried history. Not just personal history, but emotional weight. And that changes how you see things, even when you try not to let it. I picked up Emily's file again, read through it slowly. This time, not as her sister, not as someone who was hurt, but as someone responsible for building a team. Because that's what this was about now. Not the past, the future, her qualifications. Decent, her experience. Limited, but relevant. Her communication. Honest. And that mattered, because during the interview, she didn't pretend, didn't exaggerate, didn't hide behind perfect answers. She admitted where she stood, and that's rare, especially in situations like that. I leaned back slightly, thinking, because honesty isn't always the strongest skill, but it's one of the most valuable ones. You can train skills. You can improve performance. But honesty? That's harder to teach. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "You still at work?" I replied, "Yeah." A few seconds later, "Don't overthink it," he sent. I smiled slightly, because he knew me well enough. I looked at the files again, then asked myself something simple. If Emily were a stranger, would I hire her? I paused, because that question removes everything else. No past, no emotion, no history, just decision. And the answer? Maybe. Not immediately, but with the right structure, yes. I picked up a pen, wrote something on her file, then placed it in the selected pile. Not because she was my sister, not because I felt sorry, but because she met the standard. And that's the only thing that matters. The next morning, I sent out the emails. 2 rejections, 1 offer. Professional, clear, no explanation needed. An hour later, my phone rang. Emily. I looked at the screen for a second, then answered, "Hello?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Is it true?" she asked, her voice slightly shaky. "You sent me an offer?" "Yes," I replied. Another pause. Longer this time, because she wasn't expecting that. Not after everything. "I thought," she started, then stopped. I waited, because I knew what she was trying to say. "I thought you wouldn't choose me," she finished quietly. I leaned back in my chair, calm. "I didn't choose you because you're my sister," I said. "I chose you because you're capable." That mattered. Because this wasn't a favor. It wasn't a gift. It was a decision, based on who she is now, not who she was before. She exhaled slowly, like she had been holding that breath for a while. "Thank you," she said. Simple. Real. No extra words. And for the first time, hiring her was one thing. Working with her? That was something else entirely. Her first day started like any other. On time, professional, quiet. No special treatment. No announcements. Just another new hire joining the team. And that was intentional, because I didn't want this to feel like a family situation. I wanted it to be what it actually was. Work. I watched from a distance at first. Not closely. Not constantly. Just enough to understand how she moved. How she handled pressure. How she interacted with others. And something stood out immediately. She was careful. Not in a bad way, but in a aware way. Like she knew she had something to prove. And honestly, she did. Not to me. To herself. Daniel noticed it too. "She's trying hard," he said quietly one afternoon. I nodded. "I know. She's not cutting corners," he added. That's good. And it was. Because effort, real effort, shows over time. Not in big moments. In small, consistent ones. The first week passed without issues. No mistakes. No conflicts. Just steady work. But I also noticed something else. She kept her distance from me. Professional. Respectful. But distant. And I understood why. Because this wasn't easy for her either. Working under someone you once stood above. It changes things. On the second week, I called her into my office. Nothing serious. Just a check-in. She walked in carefully. Slight tension in her posture. "You wanted to see me?" she asked. "Yes," I said. Simple, calm, sit. She did. I looked at her for a moment. Not as a sister, not as someone from the past, but as an employee. "How are you finding the role so far?" I asked. Standard question. "Safe. I like it," she replied. Quick, but honest. "No issues?" She hesitated slightly, then shook her head. "No." I nodded, because I could tell she was holding something back. Not lying, just filtering. "You can speak freely here," I said. That made her pause, because that kind of statement, it invites honesty. Real honesty. It's just she started, then stopped. I waited. No pressure, because people open up when they're ready, not when you force them. It's strange, she finally said. I didn't interrupt. Working here, with you, she added. Fair, completely fair. I figured, I replied. And that seemed to relax her a little, because I wasn't pretending it was normal either. She looked down briefly, then back up. I've been thinking about that night, she said. There it was, the past, finally stepping into the room. I should have said something, she continued. Back then. I listened. Because now, this wasn't about work. This was about closure. I didn't agree with what they did, she added quietly. Silence followed, because that sentence, it carried weight. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. I leaned back slightly, thinking, because part of me already knew this. Not because she said it, but because of everything that happened after. People change, situations reveal things, and silence sometimes hides disagreement. You didn't say anything, I replied, not accusing, just fact. She nodded. I know. No defense, no excuses, just acceptance. And that mattered, because accountability doesn't need explanation. It just needs acknowledgement. I was scared, she added. That surprised me, not because it didn't make sense, but because she admitted it. Of what? I asked. Of losing everything too, she said. And that. That explained more than anything else, because fear makes people stay quiet, makes them choose safety over truth, even when it costs someone else. I didn't respond immediately, because I needed to process that, not emotionally, just clearly. 5 years ago, I thought she didn't care, but now I understood something different. She was protecting herself, not attacking me, and those two things, they look the same from the outside, but they're not. I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly. I just wanted you to know. I nodded slowly, because that was enough, more than enough. You don't need to explain it now, I said, and I meant it, because the past, it already happened. We can understand it, but we don't need to relive it. She looked relieved, not fully, but enough. Thank you, she said quietly. I gave a small nod. Focus on your work, I added. That's what matters here. Clear, professional, forward. Because that's where we were going now. She stood up, about to leave, then paused. One more thing, she said. I looked at her. What? She hesitated, then smiled slightly. I'm glad it was you, she said. That caught me off guard. Why? I asked. Because anyone else might not have been fair, she replied. I held her gaze for a second. Because that sentence, it wasn't just about the job. It was about everything. After she left, I sat there for a moment, thinking about how far things had come. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but forward. And that's what matters. Because growth doesn't erase the past. It just changes what you do with it. And now, we weren't stuck in it anymore. We were building something beyond it.